For today's basics, we're going with the most requested one so far, Dispelling. Let's get it done. Dispelling. So there are two types of dispelling we're going to be talking about today. One of them is offensive dispelling. This is where the enemy gains strength, it gains power, it becomes much stronger, or it gains a huge shield on itself, and we can remove that via the power of a dispel. And we have defensive dispelling. This is when the enemy puts something nasty onto us or on some of our friends, and with one global cooldown, we can remove that very dangerous thing from them and save ourselves a huge amount of hassle. I said in the intro, this is one of the most underutilized abilities in World of Warcraft, and you will see evidence of this absolutely everywhere. You'll see people piling heals into a target that has some sort of nasty debuff instead of dispelling it, draining their mana, slowing your whole group down, when they could have actually solved the whole thing with simply pressing one button. Similar with the offensive dispelling. Very many times you'll see an enemy put on a giant shield or something like that that actually has more HP than the health of the enemy itself. With one global cooldown, we can technically do way more damage by just pressing one button and removing that shield and then finishing the enemy off. Oftentimes though, players aren't paying attention or are not sure what to look for, therefore they'll just DPS into that shield and eventually kill it, or they'll just spam heals into that target that has a nasty debuff on it. Now, the first mistake a lot of people make with this, we're going to talk about defensive dispelling first, is that they believe it is a healer job, and I have no doubt this is why the healers are so rattled and asking for us to do a basics video on this. Absolutely not. In recent years, Blizzard did make it so that all healers can remove magical debuffs. Every single healer in the game can do that. However, not all debuffs are created equal, my friends. There are curses, there are diseases, there are all kinds of things that can occur to characters that healers simply cannot deal with, because in order to dispel those, it's actually a class-specific dispel that needs to happen. All the healers are able to remove different styles of debuffs, and that's where your character, even if you're playing DPS, even if you're tanking, can actually come in super strong and make you into a significantly better player. And that's what we want to achieve through the basic series. Very many times, and as an example here in Sanguine Depths, we can see that our shaman here is actually cursed. I can't remove that on my priest. I can heal him as much as I can, but this curse is going to kill him unless he dispels it. Shamans can remove curses. However, as most people do believe, it is a healer's job to deal with that, therefore he's going to end up dying. And I've no doubt that many people will go, bad healing, but that's his own responsibility to deal with that. How do we look for what to dispel? Well, the simplest trick in the book is knowing it's going to happen. This is the best piece of advice I can give to anybody when it comes to learning dispelling, is pay attention on your first run through a dungeon or a raid, look at what's going on, and know what these debuffs are. Blizzard is very, very good at actually pointing out who has a debuff and if you can dispel it. There'll be various glows, there'll be big notifications saying you can deal with this. If you're using standard Blizzard raid frames, they will apply special icons to know that people are debuffed. The first thing we want to do is read it. What is it? Sometimes these are beneficial. It's rare, but it does happen. Sometimes it does some other effect, like Unstable Affliction, that if you dispel it, it's going to cause a secondary effect. We can see this in the Stone Legion Generals with the Heartrend debuff. Dispelling that is going to put a very nasty, undispellable dot onto the target. We need to be prepared for that. However, after our first run, we know that happens. What does that allow us to do? Prepare for it. Know it's going to happen and be really quick with it. Oftentimes people dispel very slowly or very late, and the big reason for that, they weren't sure it was going to happen. They weren't prepared for it. They didn't know anything about it until it was too late, and maybe they dispelled it with 1 or 2 seconds left. Blizzard has increasingly made it so that 2 debuffs go out at the same time, meaning that you need to pick and choose who to get dispelled. And this is where you start having to be prepared for it, because sometimes these debuffs become overwhelming. We've let too many go out, we weren't up to date with our dispelling, and it started to snowball into a very negative effect, and we don't want that to happen. So how do we dispel? Personally, you can get add-ons that do allow you to do this, such as Click and make it easier. Ideally, when we come to dispelling, if we're going to be playing in a group environment, we want a mouse over dispel. What does this mean? It means that we can just point our mouse at a raid frame, or at ourselves, or we can use modifiers if we just want to do ourselves, press one button, and we can dispel anybody in the raid. It makes it super, super easy, super simple in all types of group play in order to dispel anyone and everyone who might need this. You'll see this macro on your screen and also linked down below in the description. Simply enter whatever the name is of your dispel, so if it's cleanse or purify, into this macro and you'll be able to do this. After your first run, you'll be more than ready for this. Now we're equipped with our dispel button, and we're also prepared for it to happen. This allows us to do some very cool things. Look at this necrotic wake here. Earlier in the dungeon, I had noticed that the guys weren't interrupting the AoE fear that the large marauders were casting. This prompted me to be ready to dispel them from the fear effect should they forget it again. Lo and behold, a couple of packs later, this happened. So while I'm focusing the Marauder and I can see the cast of the fear, if I was on another class, I would interrupt it myself, but I can't do that on my priest. So I started pre-casting Mass Dispel, under the assumption that they were going to miss it. What happens is it's instantly removed the second they miss the interrupt. These are the kind of things we can do because we've implemented both of these things. One, we've got our button ready to go, and two, we know it's going to happen. We have that foreknowledge that we're going to have to deal with this as quickly as possible. Ergo, we make a big, nice winning play like that. Most players are not even going to notice this is going to happen. That's fine, but you know you did it, and that's the important thing. Defensive dispelling is all about knowing what you're dispelling and being ready to dispel before it even happens. This is going to allow you to have those super snappy quick dispels and keep your group really healthy. And once you learn these things, it doesn't matter if you're playing a healer, a DPS, or a tank, most of these classes can dispel in some way, allowing you to aid your group. So mages, yes, you can decurse. It is very useful. Please learn. Let's move over to offensive dispelling. This is a little bit different because the raid frame still will give you some notification on that target frame that there is a buff applied to the enemy that you can remove. However, there are very different things to watch for, but we still apply the very same rules. One, we want to know it's going to happen. Do these enemies enrage? Perhaps it's Raging Week in Mythic Plus. Does this enemy apply a shield to itself? Can I deal with that? If I'm a demon hunter with consumer magic, then I can absolutely deal with that. So what we want to do now is apply the same rules that we did defensively. We're going to move into every pack, we're going to know we're going to need to dispel, and we're going to be super fast on it. As soon as a shield gets applied, we're going to remove it. Is there an enrage coming? We're going to remove it. We're going to be that player that makes that decision. Only this time, we might need some better notification. If you look at my UI or look at any of the top Mythic Pluses, they have huge notifications for when these buffs apply. That's how dangerous they are. This is the best advice I can give you because if these top players are implementing things like this to see these giant buffs and make them as obvious as possible, that's because they really matter. And I think this is where people fail a lot with dispelling, is not understanding just how powerful an enrage effect can be, how powerful a magical effect can be. And one thing I do want to drill into people about offensive dispelling is that if you can't do it, that doesn't mean you should ignore it. If you see that something is going wrong, letting your group know you need to remove that is going to allow you to have much, much greater success. Get out there, try it out, set up your UI to make it as easy as possible for yourself, try using some macros for this, and just see, go into a dungeon, go and see if you can pull off the most dispels. This is the best way to practice. Actively try and be the best dispeller, and hopefully you'll have much greater success. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I'll see you again. Bye-bye. Thanks everybody for watching this episode of Basics, and always leave down your suggestions for things that you want to see. We've already got a whole list of things that you guys have suggested, but keep them coming and we'll address them as soon as we possibly can. Other than that, check out some of our other videos, or maybe check out our website where we've got some cool merch on sale if you want to go and check it out. Thank you very much. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.